Welcome to Praxis, a podcast where we explore how to practice and embody the way of Jesus in our everyday lives. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen. So last time we kicked off a brand new series on authenticity. While authenticity is enjoying a moment in the cultural spotlight right now, its value is nothing new. It's deeply rooted in the biblical vision of being fully known and fully loved. As human beings created in the image of God, we are wired for relationship. We were made to know and to be known. And yet so often we hide, we perform, and we manage impressions by burying our weaknesses. Slowly, we begin living divided and inauthentic lives. The truth is, real relationship is impossible while hiding. Genuine connection requires courage, the willingness to show up vulnerably and authentically. So in this series, we're exploring what authenticity is, what gets in the way of it, and what it takes to pursue it, in our relationship with God, with ourselves, and others. Today, we want to discuss what gets in the way of authenticity. So let's get into it.
Well, welcome, everyone. My name is Mac.
I'm Katie.
I'm Josiah.
It's good to be with you, friends. At the time of recording this, it is the very end of April, which is allergy season. Do either of you have allergies?
No.
I do, but I've found the right medication. So it's not an issue right now.
Okay. What's your medication?
Flonase.
Flonase.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the off-brand one, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had seasonal allergies like my whole life. It's just always been seasons where your eyes are itchy and burning and just, snot running down all the time.
Oh, it sounds awful.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I thought of it because Griffin woke up the other day and like one of his eyes was pretty much like swollen, almost shut.
Oh, no.
Of course, he has almond eyes, so they're kind of like smaller to begin with. But that's when we realized, oh, you've got some allergies. And he really stinks at taking medication. So
yeah. Well, Flonase is like the spray up your nose, and I have taken everything under the sun. And that's the only one that if I take it every day, keeps off the worst of the symptoms.
Like every day year round or every day just...
No, just when the season starts, I get a bottle and you just do it every day. Because it's like last 24 hours, and the more longer it's in your system, the more it'll...
I don't think you're supposed to do it year round. Like that wouldn't be good.
No, I'm just saying I do it every day when the season's bad.
Okay.
But like middle of the summer, it's never an issue. It's always beginning of the spring and then fall. Mm-hmm. So.
Do you have allergies, Mac?
I do not. I feel like I'm allergic to other things, though. They're not like, like certain habits and behaviors that other people exhibit.
certain personality types.
Should I ask?
Yeah. We probably shouldn't go down that rabbit trail of the things that I feel allergic to.
Emotional allergies.
Yeah. I have emotional allergies. Yeah, totally. And I talk about those with my therapist. So
that's funny.
And this is not that place. As much as you want me to be vulnerable and completely transparent.
Let me tell you about authenticity. Yeah, I mean, I've got my coffee allergy. I feel like that is my cross to bear. And
it's a thorn in your side.
Yeah, I don't need any more.
To be fair, I would imagine you two have some emotional allergies too.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm sure I do, but I probably lack the self-awareness to be able to name them. But when I figure them out, I will let you know.
You're allergic to self-awareness. It's great.
There you go. It's a great place to be.
Well, speaking of all things allergies, right?
Yeah.
Don't be allergic to authenticity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so as Katie said earlier, we're in a new series on authenticity. Our last episode was our first one, and we spent some time defining what authenticity is and what it isn't. Authenticity is actually essential to our relationship with God, ourselves, and others. And ultimately, we believe that even before Brene Brown made it popular, it was actually a core value for Jesus.
Yeah, eat that, Brene Brown.
Didn't start with Brene Brown.
No. So we came up with a definition, like a key definition, and it's this. Authenticity is being real or genuine, whole and undivided before God and others, and existing in a state where our inner life and our outer life align. So today, we want to talk about what gets in the way of us showing up and relating authentically. So if authenticity is being real and genuine, whole and undivided, and our inner and outer life aligning, what are some of those things that get in the way of this?
Yeah, I mean, picking up on that last phrase of the definition where you talk about the inner life and the outer life being aligned or congruent, I think it's helpful to then attend to like both of those. So in other words, I think it's helpful to differentiate between the internal pressures that act on us and the external behaviors then that we exhibit when we're being inauthentic. So in other words, by internal pressures, I mean pressures that sort of act on us, that we feel and sense, and then when we submit to them or pivot out of them, it leads to external behaviors that aren't authentic to who we are. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. And I kind of ran a little bit of an experiment over the past few months with some of the leader's journey training I did. At a couple group trainings, I asked, maybe 150 people or whatever in tables. I said, hey, come up with a list at your tables to name what internal pressures get in the way of you showing up authentically. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting to compare their list to what I had come up with and sort of like pool the best, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Pool people's best thinking when it comes to reflecting. Yes, Katie, reflecting and self-awareness on like, hey, when I show up inauthentically, here's what I think was acting on me or I was feeling on the inside that led to these external behaviors. So I wonder if we could maybe just like divide those up and spend some time talking about here's some of those internal pressures. And then having done that, let's like look at some of the behavioral ways that we tend to show up inauthentically, right?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I'll kick us off. And have you ever received an email or maybe the text message where someone seems to be shouting at you? Like where it's like all caps. Mm-hmm. If they could italicize it, underlined it, bold it, and all cap it, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like one of those.
Now you can add the effects on the iPhone too of like
boom,
fireworks, boom.
Yeah, like you open it up and there's fireworks in your face.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Well, this first one that I'm going to name in terms of an internal pressure, I feel like it could be capped or fireworked because it sort of is present in some of the other ones. It's a really important one, and it's just the fear of rejection. Yeah. Because we are afraid of how someone else might respond, we don't show up as ourselves. Because we're afraid of experiencing maybe relational disapproval, we don't show up authentically. And I imagine this could be experienced in 1,000 different ways, depending on your personality and the social situations you're in. From something as simple as maybe someone says something that you disagree with, and rather than you expressing your own conviction, you stay quiet because you're afraid that if you expressed it, it might impact the relationship. They might reject you or distance from you. Or maybe something as silly as you're out shopping with your family and you're like, hey, I really like this. And everybody else is like, that is the stupidest, and then you don't get it. You know what I mean? Or something like that, where it's like all these from little to big ways, all these different ways. And it's so funny watching my kids, in early high school and middle school, because this is like the name of the game. They are filtering everything through. Yep. If I do this, say this, dress this way, whatever, is it going to lead to more social acceptance or social rejection? Mm-hmm. And I just, wonder how much that works against them showing up as they are. And then how much we are just like middle school, us adults, we're just middle school students in adult bodies.
Yeah. That is true. Even in like a smaller way, like music preference. I wonder sometimes how much of our music preference is actually like what we listened to in private if we weren't telling anybody else what we were listening to.
Okay, it's so funny you say that because as Mac was talking, I had this memory come up when I was sitting around with a group of friends, like in my mid-20s probably, and everyone's like, hey, what should we listen to? And I was like, oh, how about Matchbox 20? And everyone looked at me and was like, no. I was like, oh, note to self.
Not Matchbox 20.
Not Matchbox 20.
You're like, oh yeah, just kidding.
Just kidding.
Rob Thomas
So
is
bad.
stupid.
Yeah, Matchbox 20 sucks. I remember in the 4th grade, Spin Doctors. No?
I could name you a song.
You're a little older
but,
than me. So.
I'm totally
Yeah.
old. I'm old and
I think
nearing
How much older are you
decrepitude.
than me?
He's 42. You're
I'm
37.
37. Okay,
Right?
I'm right smack between you two.
I'm actually 43.
Oh, you are?
That's how old I am, Katie.
thought you were 42.
It's bad. I'm getting old. I'm nearing decrepitude. I'm at that stage where
Body is breaking down.
my body's breaking down. I can pull a hamstring while putting on socks. That's how old I am. You'll recognize this song. I just pulled up Spotify.
Yes.
yeah.
Such a good song.
This was big when I was in
Adam will have to.
Adam's gonna be mad
Adam
at
will have to
us for doing that.
splice that in.
Yeah.
4th or 5th grade. Spin Doctors, Two Princes. And I remember like listening to it over and over and over again so I could familiarize myself with the lyrics so that if it came on the bus or like,
I could sing.
I
I'd
could-
look so
I did
cool.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, I did that with the Chumbawamba song.
oh gosh, Katie. I listened to Matchbox 20 for hours so I could know every lyric, and then my friends didn't want to listen to it.
Yeah.
Chumbawamba.
Yeah, I wonder if like I totally agree with you, Beck, and yet I wonder like how much we realize we're doing that. Like how much do we realize what we're doing is actually being filtered through this question of like, how is this going to land? Because I could tell you I probably do that and don't even realize it. Like you're just thinking, oh, I'm having a conversation, and yet how much is sort of underneath the surface of our self-awareness.
I read an article recently by a therapist named Amanda E. White, and the title of the article grabbed my attention because it was called, "Of Course You Care What Other People Think." And it was really interesting because what she noted was for most of human history, other people's opinions of you determined if you survived. So social rejection wasn't just about like embarrassment. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I like Matchbox 20 and everybody else doesn't, or I don't know the lyrics to Chumbawamba. It was actually very dangerous. If your tribe cast you out, excommunicated you, you were alone against predators, starvation, and everything else that could kill you. Right? This is why like excommunication in scripture, for instance, with the Israelites, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so the real problem she names is that it's not that you don't care, it's what you do with that caring. And she sort of kind of, I don't know, tries to find a middle ground between completely ignoring other people's opinions as if you don't care at all, because sometimes that can be a different form of inauthenticity. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks.
The second someone says, I don't care what anybody thinks, I just think
You're trying
you
to...
obviously care what someone else thinks. Because you wouldn't have said it out loud if you didn't care that I thought that you didn't
don't
actually
exactly.
care about
Yes.
what people think.
Yes. So she sort of tries to weave this middle road, a third way between not caring what anybody thinks and spiraling into like, depression or whatever because you didn't know the lyrics to the song or whatever it is.
Chumbawamba.
So in other words, it's very... We need that song playing right now. It's very similar to what we've named in other episodes, like around emotional maturity and not just reacting between the stimulus and the response. You have a choice. And the choice when you're facing fear of rejection is to determine how you want to respond. Right? So under social pressure, you might go, I just heard about Matchbox 20. I don't even know who that is. I was just kidding. Or you might go, no, I really like Matchbox 20. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should listen to this song, friends,
And what you're saying is giving yourself some space between like hearing what someone else says and deciding how to respond allows you to kind of grapple with that fear.
Yeah, I think what the article is naming, and I agree with, is having some agency over how much it's acting on you. between completely dismissing the fear of rejection and pretending it doesn't exist isn't helpful, nor is allowing it to dictate your life. There seems to be a lot of room on the spectrum between those two ends to choose how much it's going to determine how you show up.
Yeah, that makes sense. And being aware of it is probably a first step.
You don't ignore it, you don't submit to it, but you respond to it in principle.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Can I name another one?
Yeah, go for it.
I would say social and cultural pressures. And I think this could be, a lot of these, as you said, could be related. But yeah, I think one of the biggest barriers to authenticity is just the pressure to fit in. And again, I would say oftentimes without even realizing it's happening. But if we think about it, it's almost like every environment we're in has unspoken rules, right? Like what kind of emotions are acceptable in this environment? What kind of personality is rewarded? What kind of faith expression is normal? In church spaces, that might look like feeling like you always need to be doing well spiritually or have the right answers about God. In parenting, it could look like trying to live up to like this ideal version of who you think you're supposed to be. So I just think we adapt our behavior based on like the social and cultural pressures around us. And then over time, we can start to lose touch with what's actually true of us. Like we begin to be formed by the expectations of the different environments that we're in.
It's almost like you're accenting the first one in a slightly different way, because of course fear and rejection is still there. But you're saying, hey, there seems to be cultural norms that permeate every environment. And if we deviate from those, we feel pressure to conform, right? Like when it comes to your gender, I would imagine women feel a pressure to conform to certain roles or certain expectations. Men do as well, right? And so on. We could go into each environment and go, here are the cultural norms or traditions that are in place that everybody feels obligated to sort of fit into. Here's the mold. And oftentimes that mold may not fit authentically with who you are. So then what do you do?
Yeah. Well, and I think where this becomes really obvious is when you visit a foreign country. You know, you guys have you've traveled. All of a sudden you're in a brand new environment. You want to know an embarrassing story that just comes to mind as I'm talking?
I would love to.
So we had a foreign exchange student from Germany when I was in high school. And then when I was like 18, my summer after senior year, I went to stay with her family for a while. And my first meal, like I had just gotten off the plane, got settled, first meal, I sat down with her family and there was like a water bottle at my table, probably a little bigger than like our average size water bottle. And I like opened it and like took a swig of it. And then after I put it down, they started passing it around the table and pouring some into their teeny tiny cups. And I realized, oh, that was the water bottle that was supposed to be for the table, like for everyone. But in America, everything's like bigger, right? And giant. So it looked like a normal water bottle that we would just pick up at a gas station.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, note to self, the water bottles are not, personal here. They're for sharing. So just to say, I think every environment has something like that. Like there is a pressure or an expectation that you operate in a certain way. And it's just probably a lot more subtle, like to a point where we don't really realize it because we're just so used to operating in those systems.
Whoops-a-daisy.
Whoopsies.
Can I save this moment by introducing you to Chumbawamba?
It's really
Who wants some Matchbox 20?
I stand by my love for Matchbox 20.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
My sister actually gave me a Matchbox 20 CD. That's how old I am. In probably high school. She's older than me. And the note in the, gift was, trust me on this one.
Oh, funny.
That's all it said.
Which one was it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I listened to it for a while and it was enjoyable, but not like top tier,
list. I mean, you're not, I had CDs. You probably had CDs, right, Jose? Yeah.
Okay.
The big black binder of all the CDs you drove around with the Sharpies.
Yeah.
For sure.
Different mixes for different things.
Yep. One of the things that gets at this for me, I've been sort of obsessed with this text for a while, like a couple months now, is Jesus at the temple when he's 12 years old. I think I might have talked about this during our last recording, but I'm still just like reading it over and over and over again. And it seems to be exactly what you're talking about, that there was cultural expectations about how Jesus was to behave, almost like a herd mentality. Like they were traveling together. This was the tradition. This was the custom. They're in Jerusalem for the Passover. Then they're going to travel as a group back to their hometown. Like the context is familial norms, cultural norms, and this group inertia. And Jesus very much, not out of rebellion, but out of alignment with his Father, does something different. And it sort of creates a panic moment for Mary and Joseph. And when they find him in the temple, attending to his Father's business, they're like, how could you do this to us? And he's like, but didn't you know like what I would be about? That isn't just like straight up rebellion. He's like clarifying for them that I'm going to be aligned with my Father and about my Father's business. And by the way, it's going to upset norms, family norms, cultural norms, expectations you have of me, expectations other people have of me. And I think what that's been doing in my heart over the past couple months is just going, where am I blindly following norms and expectations so as not to upset or offend or whatever? And how might that be getting in the way of like being aligned with what God's asking me to do?
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't think you're influenced by this one as much, just imagine going back home to family and, even you could even do it as an experiment. Just go back home to your family and pretend like you have different political convictions than your family does.
Just fake it and see what happens.
Yeah, just see what happens. Like you'd see like, oh, there is a current going one way. And if I were to define myself differently, this would be very, very disruptive.
Yes.
So let's name another one. And I think this one, I would argue, might be at the root of most of them, is shame and insecurity. You feel like parts of yourself, or maybe you yourself as a whole, are either unworthy, unlovable, and we do a fair amount of things driven by this that keep us hidden. We may be aware of those parts of ourselves that someone else deems less than. And underneath it all, it's like, well, I can't let anybody know that. I can't expose that part of myself to these people because then the gig is up, the truth is out, and I'm not as good as these other people. There's lots of comparison that sort of drives this idea that I can't really be fully myself in any given moment because that's too scary.
This is where Genesis 3, I think, is so insightful, because when it describes Adam and Eve before they eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it says that they were naked and felt no shame. They didn't have anything to hide, anything to lose, anything to fear. Like they could be completely open and transparent with one another. And then the author makes that notation that like after they eat of the tree, what do? They hide from one another and sow fig leaves. And I just think what you're narrating is the presence of shame, right? It's like shame takes root in their lives, and what does it cause them to do? Hide and cover up, and now they're not their authentic selves with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like my kids often do this. Like if they know they did something wrong, one in particular comes to mind. Like
which one?
Maybe you can guess by the pronouns.
Okay.
If she knows she did something wrong, no, she goes and hides and doesn't want to talk about it. And it's like you can just see the shame and how powerful that is. And so as a parent, constantly trying to counteract, like, yes, you did something wrong, but like we can talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a daughter who clearly feels shame about doing things wrong, but has become much too trustworthy of her ability to lie and manipulate her way out of consequences. So she will do a fair amount of work to cover up what's really happening rather than just accepting, I messed up, knowing that you'll be forgiven and we'll find a way to make it right. And
you see shame driving that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's I can't even admit to myself that I did something wrong. And all the shame, all the blame gets put out to someone else or something else or circumstances, and just an inability to reckon with the fact that, I did something wrong, but that doesn't have to mean I am wrong or I am a bad person. But I think shame is just at the core of that. And I don't think that's very far off base from a lot of people showing up inauthentically in their lives, whether it be through dishonesty or through hiding. I think that it's this strong drive to have us figure out any other way to be besides authentic with the people in our lives.
And it's hard work to get underneath your shame triggers and see how those maybe took root during your first formation and then continued to go deeper. Those roots continue to drive into deeper soil throughout your life and get underneath those and uproot them. That's hard work. I remember the books, The Soul of Shame by Kurt Thompson. So if you haven't read that might be a good one to read. But creating space with trusted people where you can name your shame and insecurity is deeply healing. Yeah. I mean, we try to do that as a staff team. And one of the things I noticed in recent iterations of that, some of the folks on our staff that are more quiet, just naturally more quiet and, not as vocal during staff meetings, when we got underneath why that is, there's some shame stuff there. Like, my voice wasn't valued growing up. And so I often don't feel like it's important enough for someone else to listen to me or hear me. Yeah. It's like, oh my goodness, like, what would it look like if we had a greater awareness of other people's shame triggers, not to take responsibility for them, but to invite them and cheer them on to undo them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the irony being that the shame is what's keeping them from being fully known. And yet all of us sitting around the table want to fully know the person.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that would help dismantle that shame and get through to that shame is keeping them from moving forward authentically.
Yeah, which is why, of course, it requires, as we name in the intro, courage. Vulnerability requires courage.
Yeah.
Another one is desire for control. When a desire for control is driving us, authenticity takes a backseat.
I'm curious what you have to say about this one. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think control is about sort of managing and manipulating outcomes, like securing outcomes. Could be perceptions of other people or decisions that are be made, whatever. And often it's rooted in a desire to feel secure or safe, validated. We need things to go our way in order to remain stable on the inside. Because if things don't go my way, well, that will be deeply disorienting and reduce my stability. But here's the connection I would make is when securing outcomes becomes the goal, when manipulating circumstances to secure an outcome becomes the goal, what ends up happening is the end I'm trying to secure causes me to do things that aren't true to my values. So in other words, we justify the means in order to secure a certain ends, even if the means to get there, might violate who we are. Does that make sense? Yeah. Maybe an example of this was I would think of maybe like doping in sports. So like Lance Armstrong, for instance, he won all those Tour de France multiple years in a row. I once watched his documentary, and he didn't start that way. He started completely natural, and then when he got into the tour, everybody was doping. It wasn't like, hey, this is an exception to get an edge. It was like, this is what you have to do just to stay in the core group. And so it just was kind of, to me, like this creep of in order to do that, this outcome is really important to me. I want to be competitive. I want to win. The means this is what I have to do to get there. And it's out of alignment with my integrity and who I am. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So maybe a couple examples, more practical, because I'm not, a cyclist. I did wear cycle shorts for a while.
Where?
I did a triathlon, a sprint triathlon years ago. This was before I was pulling hamstrings while putting on socks. But okay, so leadership. You feel pressure to make a decision, but aren't certain about what option is best. Instead of acknowledging that, which might, involve some risk, you speak with confident certainty about what to do, even though you're not certain at all. Right? Because you're trying to secure other people's perception of you that you're confident and you know what to do. Relationships, you avoid hard conversations or don't say what you actually feel because you want to control the stability of the relationship or manage the other person's perception of you, how they feel about you. Get what I'm saying? Like, just think about it. Can you guys think of an example of like, oh, this outcome really mattered to me, and in order to like secure that outcome, I actually did something that was inauthentic to me or to my guiding principles and values?
Yeah, I'd have to think of an example. I just think this one is interesting because I feel like it's not nearly as obvious as the others. Like if I think about the times that I'm inauthentic, I wouldn't be inclined to think, oh, I was trying to control that person. But I think you're exactly right. At the root of it is I care a lot about what that person thinks about me. I can't handle, the tension, whatever it is. So I'm actually, rather than respecting their own agency to think what they're going to think, I'm trying to manage their perception of me.
Yes. And maybe there's a through line to fear and rejection, that first one we were naming, because the more we try to control how other people perceive us, like I'm cool, I know the lyrics to Chumbawamba, right?
You are never going to live that.
I'm fine with that.
The more we drift into inauthenticity.
Yeah.
Like we're outsourcing who we are in order to control an outcome or another person.
Yeah.
And it just strikes me that Jesus didn't do this. So he didn't manage other people's perceptions. In fact, there's tons of times where Jesus said or did things that he knew would be misperceived, and he still did them and didn't provide the clarity that I think most of us would want to do. He didn't avoid truth in order to earn or maintain approval with other people. He often said and did things that were disruptive and actually increased the chances of rejection from other people. Not saying we should go around doing that. I'm just saying, no, Jesus seemed to, when there was a collision between maintaining approval and saying what needed to be said or staying aligned with God, we know what he chose. He didn't present a curated version of himself in order to win other people over.
Yeah. I think that people would use saying what needs to be said as like I'm being authentic.
Yes.
Which we kind of named that.
Yeah. Right. We talked about that last episode.
Yes. So I think that for me, like sometimes also the desire to control things is like also controlling circumstances, and being authentic is also going to be like a release of the control of those circumstances because you're not trying to manipulate them in some sort of way.
Sometimes we'll just even control our environment to avoid the vulnerability of uncertainty. So, for instance, when my second son was born, Kier, he had what was called failure to thrive. He was not eating, and we had to spend a week in Children's Hospital running all sorts of tests. It was horrible. When he was in the hospital, I remember coming home and mowing the grass. It was March. Like, we didn't need to mow the grass. And as I began to reflect on that, that thing called self-awareness, Katie.
We might have done an episode or two on
Yep. I realized it's way easier. Like controlling the length of the grass is easier for me in this moment than being open and honest and authentic about all the fear I have with my son.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of angles to this one. I do agree. Perhaps what I'm naming is a little bit harder to get our hands around, but I'm willing to suggest that the people who are most controlling around us are compensating. It's acting against their ability to be authentic.
Yeah.
Josiah, you and I both read a book called The Cost of Control a couple years ago by Sharon Hattie Miller, and she goes through all these different chapters of what control looks like. And I think one of them is managing the perceptions of others.
Yeah.
And I remember that being a light bulb moment for me because I'm someone who's had a long journey with authenticity, and I never would have been able to see it as control. But sure enough, I started to see how, hey, every time I'm not living into my values or saying what I really think or believe or feel, at some level, it is about me going, if I'm talking to you, Josiah, I want to control how you see me. I want to control how you relate to me. I want to control whether you think of me as your friend. I want to control whether you think of me as competent. Like those are all me trying to control rather than me going, I'm going to live into my values and let the chips fall where they may. And you're just going to think what you're going to think. You're going to react how you're going to react. You're going to have your own agency. Maybe just to break it down a level, I'm just going, this is I think a more difficult one to see. But man, it really is.
You're articulating it beautifully.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. She names in the book that it's also like it's really a source of anxiety in our life too. The desire to control things like is a self-perpetuating cycle of like, I seek to control this thing in order to manage how people see me or various other things. And that leads to more and more like action and effort that has to be given to try to control the thing, which leads to more anxious thoughts and worry about it. So it's fascinating, but also a little off topic.
Well, you have some reading assignment, friends.
Yeah, there you
You've
go.
got to read The Soul of Shame and The Cost of Control.
Yeah. Another one I would name would be conflict avoidance. Conflict avoidance meaning like avoiding tension or disagreement by masking our true feelings. I think, for me, it can be easy to see how my authenticity might break down once tension enters the room or enters a conversation. I think it's one thing to be yourself with someone when you like see things eye to eye and you find yourself agreeing on everything and things are great and they're your bestie. But all of a sudden you notice a gap between what they think and what you think, or what they feel or what you feel, or what they want, what you want, et cetera. And then this internal dialogue starts going in my head that like, okay, if I say what I really think, will this damage the relationship? How am I going to tend to that gap between you and me? Is this a conflict that's worth the relational tension? And I would want to normalize this to some extent. I think a lot of us have learned either explicitly or implicitly that conflict is dangerous, or having conflict is not loving, having conflict is harsh, whatever. But I do think that it's worth naming that in the end, avoiding conflict doesn't actually preserve the relationship. It actually does the opposite of what we're trying to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there have been times when I have chosen harmony over honesty in an effort not to like hurt the relationship, and it just elongated the timeline before the relationship came to an end, Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also probably worth naming that there is also wisdom in figuring out what is worth having conflict over / what's the right timing to bring something up. But what you're naming is the fear of what might happen with this relationship or in this instance, if I bring it up, can keep us from living honestly and authentically with people in our lives.
Again, there seems to be a concern underneath some of the things we're naming just to kind of become an unfiltered, reactive jerk in the name of authenticity. We're not saying that, right? When we talk about engaging in conflict or choosing honesty, even though it might disrupt some harmony, or not giving a carte blanche permission just to kind of unfiltered say whatever you think, it still needs to be filtered through the law of love, cruciform love for the other person. Like I'm assuming, nope, this doesn't change my fundamental posture that I'm acting out of love for the sake of this other person and for our relationship.
Yeah, and it's also, I think it's also, there's probably like acute and chronic conflict avoidance. Like in the acute way of like, there are instances when it's going to be wise to not bring something up, right?
Yeah.
But the motivation for that isn't necessarily what we're speaking of. But the chronic avoidance of conflict, as it happens over time, it might cause you to be connected to someone and they don't even really know who you are. I mean, I think this probably happens in a lot of marriages. They get into ruts of not showing up fully authentically, avoiding things. No, he can't handle that, or she'd blow up if she knew about this, things like that. And then pretty soon, it's 10, 20 years and you look across the table from someone and you're like, oh, I don't really know you.
Right.
And this one is so deceiving because we think we're avoiding conflict to preserve connection with the person. But at the end, we're actually doing the opposite. We're preserving a connection, but it's not a real kind of connection. It's actually like a fake connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does require tons of wisdom and discernment. I mean, going back to marriage, for instance, not everything that like I want to express is going to be helpful to Josie.
Yes.
Like there's this thing called grace. So if she doesn't show up well, it's not like I need to confront that every time. It's like, hey, come on.
Does this need to like?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you need to like every time someone does something you don't like, you need to tell them about it.
Yeah, but I do think that this is probably okay. I tend to be more of a direct person. I'm not known for. Most people wouldn't associate me with conflict avoidance. But it might be shocking for them to learn that
I've heard you say this. Yeah.
That I actually do. It's hard work for me to step into conflict. I don't love it. I am often motivated to like deepen and preserve the relationship. Initiating conflict isn't a sign that you don't care. It's a sign that you do, because it's often way easier not to have the conversation than to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that there are certain environments where it's a lot harder for me to be honest rather than just like preserve harmony. I notice this with my family, like not nuclear family, but like extended family. When I'm with my in-laws or my extended family, like there's all sorts of different opinions, and it's just easier to just kind of nod and smile. Another environment I feel it a lot, and I'm growing in my ability to not do this, is on Sunday mornings with our church. So if you're listening, I'll just be honest with you. On a typical Sunday, I absorb a lot of commentary that people throw at me. I have a lot of interactions with people. Some of them are very unusual. Some of them are odd, fine. But some of them are like borderline disrespectful and rude. And I have been learning with my therapist how to hold up a mirror in those moments rather than just absorb it. Like, oh yeah, that's fine. Because I think there's this expectation that church leaders sometimes feel to be just like, sponges. You can come throw anything at me and I'm just going to respond with grace and love and maturity and all that stuff. And I'm not wanting to dodge maturity. But I am learning very slowly with a lot of help in these moments, instead of going, I'm just a sponge that has to absorb whatever you throw at me.
Doormat.
A doormat, to go, time out. What you're saying or doing right now impacts me this way. I'm feeling hurt by what you're doing. And that to me is kind of illustrates what we're talking about. It's way easier for me to, especially because on Sunday morning, all the interactions, they're not like intimate. They're not always, they're acquaintances, or you know what I mean? Some of them are really close to me, but a lot of times it's like, I don't have the depth of relationship where that feels like worth it.
Yeah.
But the trade-off, as you were naming, Katie, is continuing to absorb it, which then doesn't do good work for my heart or soul. So I think we said this in a previous episode. I want to have thick skin and a soft heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. No, it is really true.
And again, just pointing to Jesus, reading through the Gospels, he does a just beautiful, it gives us a beautiful example of engaging conflict with grace and truth.
Yeah, so another one to name, and this is for you, Katie, mostly, is the lack of self-awareness.
That's why I have good friends like you guys.
I know.
As soon as I started working here, my self-awareness increased greatly.
No, for real though. A lack of self-awareness, I guess it just goes almost without saying that if you don't know who you are, then how are you supposed to show up authentically? You may or may not be being authentic in any given moment. So I think that all of us could probably name parts of our lives where we weren't self-aware, maybe in the past, but we could also name other people that we interact with where you realize you start to look that like, oh, I don't think that they know why they're doing the thing they're doing any more than I do, really. Or sometimes you observe it, but I think that, we've talked about it in various ways throughout many, many podcasts, episodes, that self-awareness is sort of the key to unlocking a lot of the growth and maturity and becoming more like Jesus, like an awareness of your feelings, your values and desires, and the ability to express them. I actually did a couple years ago, probably with my therapist, we did like a values exercise. And it's simple enough. You just get a huge long list of options for values,
Brene Brown has an exercise like that.
That's probably where it came from.
Oh yeah,
honestly.
It's like a big sheet of paper that you print out, and it's got all these different values.
Yeah.
And you can pick
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brene Brown, you're back in our good graces.
Yeah, that all of the values were like cut out in small little sheets of paper, and you essentially just sit in a more of a reflective state, like, hey, which one of these feel more important to me than others? Which ones do you kind of that resonate with you? And I found it very, very helpful because you start to realize what things are more important to me than others, and as we spoke about before, not filtering that through what someone else thinks my values are supposed to be. And I would imagine that for many of us growing up in the evangelical Christian context, I always felt a lot of pressure to conform, to have certain ideologies and beliefs that weren't necessarily the main Christian beliefs. They were more doctrinal or opinions, and found it very, very helpful to name, hey, this is actually what I value in my life. And being able to understand that gives you more peace to show up in a way that is actually you.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked a lot about self-differentiation being the ability to define yourself and be connected at the same time. And I think we underestimate how much work it is to be able to define ourselves, to know what I really think, what I really believe, what I value, what I'm willing and not willing to do. Like, that is a lot of work. And if we just outsource that to meeting the expectations of other people, what happens over time is the expectations of other people that we've adopted become part of our self-understanding. Mm-hmm. And we end up self-deceived because we've adopted and downloaded who we are from the expectations of others rather than taking the time to figure it out. And I know we're going to talk a lot about that in our next episode, how when we're living inauthentically, it actually leads to a false self that then gets in the way of us living into God's design for us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I feel like I've had a long personal journey kind of with this one. I would say, in my college years, I would almost maybe call it like a crisis of authenticity. I didn't want to be inauthentic, but I just started increasingly knowing like, oh man, I'm having a hard time being consistent across like many different environments. And the best thing for me, I think, was moving to California. I went to California then for law school. And while it was really hard because I had really close friends, I went to Pepperdine. Yep. I had really close friends. I had like a great community here, people that I loved. It was really good for me to just get space and distance because there was a sense in which it's like, well, I don't want to be inauthentic, but like, who am I? Not to be cliche, I had to go find myself. But seriously, if you spend enough time just sort of adapting to whoever is around you, you can't be authentic if you don't know what's actually true, right? Inside of you. And so for me, just getting space, spending a lot of time with God and going, God, how did you create me? What's important to me? What do I really think and feel? Like, it was actually, I don't know if I would have narrated this at the time, but looking back, I can see, that space, that just time alone, having quiet, having just kind of being thrown out there halfway across the country by myself allowed me then to have 3 years to figure out really who I was. And then I was able to eventually move back and now, reestablish a lot of connection, but based on that foundation.
What a great little indicator or light on the dashboard if you to alert, hey, I might be operating not out of who I am, but out of a group expectation if I find myself showing up very differently across different groups, right?
Yeah.
That might be something to note. Another one is perfectionism. So I'm an Enneagram 1. Well, I don't really fit neatly there. I'm still waiting on Josiah's definitive typing of me. I score high as a 3 and an 8 as well. My joke is I'm a 1 wing 8 because I just...
Well, you're in the gut triad somewhere, so...
Oh, yeah. Definitely. But I feel this as a leader a lot. Like the need to model the way, lead by example, always be at my best, right? And I've noticed that there are times when that really disrupts or gets in the way of me just showing up authentically, because I need to I feel like there's a standard I need to maintain, right? It reminds me of this a little bit. You may remember this, but our predecessor at one point, previous leader, made a comparison to Disneyland. And he talked about how like anybody who works at Disneyland, there's like a tunnel system. Okay. And the moment they step out of the tunnel, they have to be in character. Okay. And I was told that like the moment you step out of the office on a Sunday, you're to be in pastoral character. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, when I'm trying to maintain a certain like image,
Gotcha.
it actually gets in the way of me being honest. And so I've been learning, perhaps very slowly, what it looks like to be human-sized.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
For clarity. What is, when you feel like you can't show up perfectly, what is your instinct to do then?
In terms of like when this perfectionism is taking over?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. I just know how to compartmentalize whatever it is that's like, okay, so like right now I'm doing that to a degree, if I'm honest. We lost a friend this week. You know, at the time of this recording, we learned that Caleb DeVries passed away Friday night. And that sucks. It's really hard. And I was texting with Alex, your husband, Katie. How you doing? And so on, checking in with him. He said, how are you doing? And I go, I just have a compartment that I can put this in, and I won't give myself permission to feel it until the funeral's over. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just going, that's how I've learned to navigate these tough moments.
Yeah.
When you're sort of in this weird space where you have to lead and you're grieving at the same time. And I think that like what I'm trying to name is like that takes over more than probably people realize, that there's something going on underneath the surface, and my skill set is to learn how to like compartmentalize, disconnect from that in order to maintain a professional standard over here.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to give myself permission to be more human-sized.
To show up, and if you don't have it all put together, you can still show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that a lot of other people who struggle with perfectionism, it's also an excuse to not show up at all. If I can't show up perfectly, if I can't do this thing perfectly, if I can't say this thing perfectly, I won't say it at all. And it sounds like the growth for those people is like being able to be less than ideal in this instance, but I'm still here.
Yeah. And if I'm honest, one of the things that makes it hard for me, and this is less the case with friends or our staff, but definitely the case with the broader community, is that the moments where I'm not perfect typically result in intense accusation. And that just really sucks, because it means that on a weekend, if I have an interaction that's less than perfect, may not be immediate, but down the road, people hold on to that, and then it comes back to sort of like be thrown in your face. And I just think that does bad work.
Yeah.
I think that, as I preached about last weekend, like we need to become a community of grace and peace, where the grace we've received from God is the grace we extend to one another. And the peace we have with God is the peace we pursue with one another. And I think in our relationships, to the degree that someone makes a mistake and we either throw that right back in their face and or hold on to it at a time when we're frustrated to leverage sort of shame or guilt, to that degree, we're denying the gospel.
Yeah. If I'm honest, I struggle with this in my home with my kids. I have an instinct to want to extend lots of grace. I am an Enneagram 4, so people being able to show up emotionally authentic is a value to me. I want my kids in my home to feel safe to just express themselves and not feel like every tiny word is going to get nitpicked if they don't say it perfectly. And that's nice. I have lots of grace for that. But you're also shepherding these kids and having to address continual patterns and feeling the tension of, yeah, like you did make a mistake and I don't want you to have to beat yourself up about it, but it does have to be addressed. And then ultimately there's character issues or continued patterns. How do you address those without making it like you're rubbing their nose in it when they make a mistake? And when they don't have the self-awareness to bring it up themselves, and you're the one who always has to bring it up, it can feel, I don't know, I can feel a conflict of two different values for me as a parent.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. Maybe you're saying in some ways your default is the opposite, but but I guess I would ask the question, when you do address it, I can imagine, Josiah, you're not addressing it from this place of saying, hey, you need to present this more polished version of yourself so that other people think more highly of our family, right? That would be that perfectionism.
Yeah, well, and honestly, like, to bring it back to authenticity for me as a dad is authenticity for me is being willing to bring things up with the kids. Mm-hmm. I want to sweep things under the rug, not because I don't care about their character, but because I don't want to deal with the conflict. I want it to just be peace, but it's pseudo peace because you have, kids running around and they're crashing into each other and sort of pretending like everything's fine. Is an inauthentic way of me showing up as a dad.
Yeah. Yeah, you said something, Mac, that I want to double click on, and that's that you, especially when it comes to just being kind of present in our congregation, one of the reasons you feel pressure to present this polished image of yourself is because in the past, when you haven't, it hasn't gone well, and it's been met with intense accusation. That would lead me to probably name this last one as just wounds from the past being a reason we don't show up authentically. I think for a lot of us, this sense of inauthenticity isn't just theoretical; it really is experiential. Like at some point, we were honest and it didn't go well. Perhaps we tried to show up vulnerably and we felt dismissed, or we spoke up and we were rejected. So I think all of us could point to experiences where we learned it's safer to hide. So I think we're going to spend our next episode on this. So I don't want to say too much here, but I would just name that our resistance to authenticity, I think, really makes sense in light of our story. I think we each have a story there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Self-protection gets in the way of authenticity. And I have lots of stories as a kid, including the pressure to perform. So I experienced a lot of that growing up. In a way that was great in some respects because it challenged me to become who I could reach my potential, and that there was a shadow side to that, right? Okay. And of course, experiences growing up where you put yourself out there in some way and experience social rejection, and then you go, it's not okay for me to be that way. I shouldn't share with people that I like Chumbawamba, obviously, and I don't want to experience that kind of rejection again. They don't want to be friends with me because I don't know the lyrics.
Yeah. Well, my parents took the CD away when they read the lyrics.
Well, yeah, as they should have. That's almost as bad as Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill.
Oh,
that's right.
That was my first concert, so don't even get me started.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so
what kind of pill is this?
Yeah.
I remember that.
All right, so we've got, we just gave you a ton of internal pressures that you might feel acting on you that inhibits or gets in the way of you showing up authentically. Fear of rejection, social and cultural norms, shame and insecurity, desire for control, conflict avoidance, lack of awareness, and perfectionism, and the wounds from the past. Let's shift gears and then go, okay, assuming that these internal pressures have their way, right? They sort of take over. What does that lead to behaviorally in how we show up? In other words, if these pressures sort of act on us and we submit to them, what does that look like behaviorally? And one that I would name, maybe the first behavior, is just pretending, right? Instead of being real with people, we pretend with people. One way I like to think about it is we put on a mask. right? So if your real face is this, I put on a mask so that you can't see the real me. I might be hurting or sad inside, but I smile. I might be afraid and insecure, but I exude confidence, whatever it might be. And the more we do that, the more we sort of pretend or project an image, the more disconnected our relationships become from who we really are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in the last episode we talked about the difference between honesty and transparency, right? And that would just, again, want to emphasize that there's discernment required here. You're not always going to be 100% authentic all the time. That doesn't mean you're fake and pretending. But I do think there are lots of subtle ways that we probably don't even realize that we're pretending because we're not being overly, right? It's not overt. It's not extreme. We can point to other people who seem really fake, but I think that self-awareness.
Yeah, it's just like always presenting a polished version of ourselves, right? I might even say, hey, there's a difference between real vulnerability and like calculated faux vulnerability.
Oh, totally. In the church, okay. Don't even get me started. I feel like in the church context, just generally in church and faith spaces, there is a lot of manufactured vulnerability.
Oh, yeah.
Because it works. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going to do a big speaking gig somewhere and I can sort of like pick a story that
prompt tears at this moment.
Yeah. It happens all the time. All the time.
Yeah, so that works against behaviorally once those internal pressures grab a hold of us. One of the ways it shows up is just pretending.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another way it shows up is protecting. So if our inauthenticity leads us to show up with masks, it can also cause us to build walls. So it keeps people out. This can look like withholding from people, intentionally withholding what you're actually thinking and feeling, shutting down when you're in conflict, numbing or checking out to avoid being vulnerable with a person or even with yourself. You deal with something big. It also could be, I think avoiding could look like mowing the lawn instead of dealing with how you're really feeling about your son, right? So there's things we do. We don't want people too close, so we build a wall and say, this is as close as you get. And obviously that's problematic.
These two seem to me to go together. So like when we pretend, when we wear a mask, to the degree that other people buy it, right? They sort of submit to the image that we're projecting. Well, then to that degree, we need to pretend or erect walls to keep people at a distance from seeing the real me. Because the other person likes a pretend version of me, not the real me. So I'm constantly maintaining this mask while at the same time erecting boundaries to keep them from seeing who I really am.
Yeah, they do go hand in hand.
And I think everything that we could name about how things show up behaviorally probably fall under these two categories of pretending, protecting. Sometimes at the leader's journey, we talk about hiding and hustling, right? The pretending is that hustle, that performative piece, and then hiding is that protective piece, that avoidance piece, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and ultimately it just leads to people being, there's a certain level of distance people are going to have to the real you.
Yeah.
Whether it's like stiff-arming them intentionally with like avoidance and withholding and shutting down, or it's pretending like I'm something I'm not. So the thing they're interacting with is actually quite far from who I really am.
Which, to our point earlier, it obstructs the possibility of real relationship.
Yeah, right.
Because if, for instance, I present myself in a certain way that's not true to who I am, I put on a mask, I pretend, and Josiah responds favorably. Well, the truth is he doesn't love or favor the real me, but a pretend me. And I know that. Deep down inside, I know that. Oh, he just likes the version I'm projecting. rather than the real version. And so I'm not actually giving you an opportunity to be in relationship with me, but to pretend me.
Yeah.
And this, just to put it to another layer, is in our relationship with God. We've named this like God only meets us in reality. So this is like this like correlates to that in a way that if we want to have a real relationship with God, we also have to relate to him at that authentic place. So if you can see maybe how it works with your relationships with other people, that they're interacting with a person that isn't fully you. Well, God refuses to do that. And so often when we find ourselves like distant from God, it's because we've been incongruent with ourselves, and God's waiting to relate to the real us.
God is committed to meeting us in reality. So let's just maybe double click on that for a moment. We're saying pretending and protecting. Thank you, Katie. Are the two big behavioral ways this shows up, but there's a lot of those are umbrellas for other behaviors. Right? That could show up in a million different ways. Just, I don't know, maybe cast some vision for us of like, here's an example of how that would show up underneath that umbrella.
Yeah, one that comes to mind for me is just pleasing, like people pleasing, placating others. Man, for me, I can point to times when my decisions are driven more by how something would be received than by whether it's aligned with what's true for me, my values, my limits, what I actually need. So practically, this can look a lot of different ways. One way I think it can often look like for me is over-committing to things, saying, yes, I can do that when I really should be saying no, taking on something because I don't want to disappoint someone, even if I really don't have the capacity to do it, or maybe I just don't want to do it. And what's tricky is it can look loving on the outside. It can even feel loving when I'm doing it. Like, oh, this person needs me, or wants
I'm so
me in
Christ-like.
this way. I'm so Christ-like. I'm being helpful. I'm being generous. And all of those things can be true, but underneath what's at the root of me saying yes, if I really mean no, is fear. Probably goes back to that fear of rejection or conflict avoidance or whatever. So I continue to adjust myself to keep this relationship feeling okay. And frankly, I wish I could give everyone what they wanted of me all the time. Like I really do. I don't think when I look at myself and I really get self-aware, I don't feel like I'm being malicious in any sense. I really, truly wish I could be everything that everyone needs me to be because I care for these people. I really do. But it's so easy then to miss the cost.
Yeah.
Which is, okay, now I'm depleted, exhausted. I'm living a life other than what's really feels aligned. I'm not grounded. I'm not centered. And this other person doesn't actually know who I really am.
Yeah, and what strikes me is how that's like an amalgamation of both of those things. So you're pretending like you can be there for people, like you're projecting in it, I'm always here for you, blah, blah, blah. But then you're hiding the cost and how you're really doing.
Yeah.
I'm weary, I'm worn out, I'm burdened, whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I would add there's probably also an avoidance of having to say no when disappointing someone.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because there's
Yeah, saying no stinks.
the motivation, although is probably mostly like a pure motive of I want to help people, but I'm not being honest about my limitations. There's also the shadow side of like,
Seems
if I
like you
say
might
no,
be prompting some self-awareness for Katie. I want to help people, but I also want to avoid the disappointment.
I do not want them to think less of me.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't really have limits. Maybe you all do. This is more
Enneagram
theoretical.
Yeah. This is just an idea.
I have an example of this. I wasn't necessarily going to share this, but it's simple. I recently had someone from our denomination reach out to me. Well, I should say not that recent, several months ago. And that's important to the story, that they were starting like a worship department within our denomination nationally. And she asked me to lead like a online cohort once every few months with people in our area. She said, just facilitate getting people together and being able to send emails. And I should have said no. But I didn't. If I was honest with myself, I should have said no. I'm going to school full time. I've got 6 kids and schedules to manage. And I should have given it to someone who had more capacity. But if I'm honest, looking back, I was flattered that someone asked me. And my motivation for doing so was not driven out of value to serve our people. It was done out of wanting to please others or look like I was probably better than I was. And subsequently, I have not scheduled even one of those cohorts yet. So, and I got reminded of it because I got an email, not about me directly, but like, hey, how's it all going? And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Fantastic.
I have done nothing. So that's, a little vulnerable, but it's lower stakes. But it's an example where I'm even just in this moment reflecting, like my motivation for saying yes was not authentic to doing so. I overcommitted because I thought it was going to increase some sort of image or something, or at least maybe my own view of myself. I think I'm a better person.
Well, thanks for sharing. I think we all do that probably on a regular basis.
Yeah. So another one that I think is tied to that in some ways, but if we sometimes please others and placate others in order to maintain some sort of image, we also perform our way into that image. So if I can perform perfectly, if I can perform all my job functions perfectly, if I can be competent and efficient and never take a break, that I can present myself in a way that avoids someone seeing how I'm really doing. If like you have the masks on, this is almost like the dancing monkey that just never stops and is always performing for others, but less connected to what's internally driving them to do so.
Do you know that song, Dance Monkey?
Do you want to sing it for us?
I'm not good at singing. They don't even let me turn on my mic during worship because I would ruin it. But I resonate with that song because Sunday morning often feels like, okay, here I go again. Do it all again.
Yeah.
So maybe one of the exercises is just to go, okay, hiding and hustling, performing and protecting. What are the myriad of ways that shows up for me behaviorally underneath those two sort of containers or headers? And the result of this, and we're going to talk about this next week, is just that the more you live incongruently with who you are, the more you are living out of a false self, not your real self. And your false self, just to kind of cast some vision, is an identity that we tend to construct to function, to succeed, to survive, apart from securely being rooted in God. And it's shaped by fear and performance and all the things we've named. It often, what makes it tricky is that it presents itself as strength and competency or whatever.
Yeah.
But underneath it is really insecurity. And so the pseudo self, this false self, is not who we really are. That's going to be really important just to kind of note for our next episode. It's not who you really are. It is who we believe we must be in order to feel safe, significant, loved. And part of the contrast is to go, hey, the more rooted you are in Christ, the more you put on who you really are in Christ, the more you can shed that false self, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of our year-long leadership intensives. A lot of the work that we do in those groups is around identity. It's about figuring out who we are in Christ, right? And we all know that I'm God's child, I'm loved, I'm fully redeemed, I'm fully known. But to really, really like sit in that and root your identity in that, I think is really the answer to all of this that we're talking about. If I'm trying to get my worth from how people perceive me, I will always be managing myself. It just only gets more exhausting and never gets easier. You're just constantly trying to manage that gap, and the gap just widens and widens and widens. So you got to expend more energy trying to manage it. But if my identity is secure in Christ, if I'm already fully known and fully loved, then I'm actually free to be honest.
Yeah.
And I don't think this makes vulnerability easy, but I think it gives us a foundation to begin practicing it.
Totally. And that's a perfect segue into praxis time.
That's good.
Praxis podcast.
Wrong button.
All the buttons.
Yeah. So we always want to end with giving like, okay, this isn't just a conversation. This is something we can actually live into and practice in our everyday lives. And I'll name our first practice because we just said that this is the solution. It's to get your identity in Christ. It's not something that happens in an hour per time, right? This is deep work, long work. And it struck me as interesting. You said, Katie, hey, we all know who we are. We're a child of God. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. We're a new creation in Christ, like all this stuff. But do we? You know what I mean? There's I'm not saying we don't know some of those phrases, but what I am saying is, but do we really know, like in our bones, that that's who we are? There's something deeper that we need to attend to than just like knowing the verses or like on a surface level believing that's true. Public beliefs are different than like core beliefs. So what would it look like? And you can Google this. You could Google who am I in Christ, and there's lists that will pop up right away that give you probably about 100 descriptors of here's who you are as someone created in God's image, right? You're fearfully, wonderfully made, all this stuff. You're sealed with the Holy Spirit. You're born again. You're the apple of God's eye. You have peace with God. Like there's all these descriptors. And I've mentioned before, I don't know if I've done this on this podcast, but I've mentioned it before that when I was in college, I took probably about 40 of those and just spent 1 week on each one as an attempt to go, I don't just want to believe this is true. I want to like believe in the core of my being that this is true. And again, it's long work, but it's the best work because the more secure you are in Christ, the less you are knocked off course by those internal pressures, by the behavior of other people and so on. And the more you can show up the way you need to.
We were having a conversation recently with someone who was ready to go, who's preparing to go into full-time mission work overseas. And this person named that as they were getting ready to go, this became kind of an identity crisis of, wait a second, I'm ready. I'm going to commit my life to sharing God's love with people overseas. And I don't actually believe that this is true about myself. I don't actually in my bones, I know that I'm loved by God, but I realize I don't actually believe it. And she just described how she spent time doing a similar exercise to what you did, like meditating in scripture and just letting that really sink in, and how over time God allowed that to be true of her.
Yeah, it's interesting that Jesus, I wouldn't call it an identity crisis, but there was an identity affirmation moment before he launched into public ministry.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about her story and what I'm narrating. What we see in the life of Jesus, before you're going to serve and minister to other people, you got to get your identity from God.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be doing it to gain something rather than, to express who you are.
Yeah. We have a saying in the curriculum that just says that if like every behavioral problem is ultimately an identity crisis, and it is an interesting thought experiment, maybe along with the dwelling in those identity passages, is just to imagine if I actually believed this was true, how would that impact how I showed up in any given situation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So get your identity in Christ, and you can start this week. 1 day a week, take one of those affirmations of here's who I am in relationship to Jesus, and try to drink deeply of that in a way that's transformative.
Yeah. Another practice would be to identify those internal pressures that act on you the most. We went through kind of a longer list in this episode, and I would just encourage you, go through the list and try to sense which ones like stand out. Like, ooh, that's me. That is something I struggle with. And the point of that is not necessarily like go and hurry up and fix it and fix myself. Often it's enough just to be aware, because as you become aware of those things, we stop being compulsive with our behavior, and we start to, when we can observe it, it allows the space between the stimulus and response and the Holy Spirit to lead us into something different.
Yeah, you can't take off what you can't name. So it's important to be able to go, oh, I'm doing that Chumbawamba thing again.
What if I actually really wanted to know the lyrics of Chumbawamba?
Yeah, the real application was Katie was being authentic.
I actually wanted to be cool at the party.
Yeah, she really wanted to drink the whiskey drink, then the vodka drink.
You got it. See? You knew it too. Yeah, and maybe a third practice is just to identify the behaviors that you tend to embody when you're living authentically. So going back to like self-awareness and reflection, get to know yourself well enough to go, I'm acting inauthentically here, or I'm acting authentically for here. Again, one thing that I would name, it's kind of like a light on the dashboard for me, is if I notice like I'm less present, right? Like if I'm putting all my energy into managing how I'm coming across to someone, I find it's actually much more difficult to truly like hear what they're saying and get present to them and to listen well. But if I'm living authentically, I'm more grounded, more present, more honest, and I'm able to just enter into deeper relationship because of that presence. So I would invite our listeners to ask, what do I do when I tend to feel pressure? Do I perform? Do I withdraw? Do I people please? Like, as you think through the examples we've named, begin to identify what's true for you so that you can notice it in the moment.
Yeah. So we all have some work to do.
Oh, yeah.
Get your identity in Christ. God will meet you in that space with grace. Name the internal pressures, name the behaviors. And that's the work. It's a lifelong work. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Next time, as we alluded to, we're going to talk about the false self and what it means to take that off so we can live into our new self, who God has designed and created us to be. So that's where we're headed, and we hope you'll continue to tune in.
Praxis is recorded and produced at Crosspoint Community Church. You can find out more about the show and our church at crosspointwi.com. If you have any questions, comments, or have any suggestions for future topics, feel free to send us an email. And also, if you enjoy the show, consider leaving a review. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
I have a podcast praxis suggestion, and that would be to change the theme music to Chumbawamba.
Yeah.